In November of 2023, a 35-year-old stormed out of his house after a heated argument with his husband. Over the next 16 months, massive searches were conducted and accusations spread across social media, but no real leads emerged until March of 2025, when a body was located just a few blocks away from his home. Welcome to Without a Trace. I'm your host, Jolynn. Every file holds a mystery. Every story deserves to be heard. This is Tyler's story. Tyler was born on April 2nd, 1988, in Hastings, Nebraska. When he was 2 years old, his family moved to the small town of Bennett, Nebraska, where he spent most of his life. Tyler has 3 older sisters and 1 younger brother. Tyler was the kind of person who had lifelong friends. He met most of his friends in school and maintained those friendships until the day he went missing. Tyler was described as being a fun-loving person that you could count on. He was also strong-willed to the point of being stubborn. Tyler was very active and healthy. He loved running and was a big marathon runner. He always looked forward to volleyball season and loved walking his dogs. After high school, Tyler enlisted in the National Guard, where he served for 8 years, from 2012 to 2020. From there, he pursued his interest in attending college, receiving his bachelor's in business administration from Doane University and obtaining his master's degree from Western Governors University. Tyler was a busybody and was always looking to better himself. He was talking about going back to school for his doctorate, and he even obtained his real estate license. Following his career in the National Guard, Tyler worked as a corrections officer for a while before he became an insurance agent and owned his own agency office. In January of 2022, Tyler missed corrections too much, so he went back to work at the Nebraska Department of Corrections. Tyler loved to help people, and working in re-entry as a vocational and life skills program manager allowed him to do this. One night at a bar in Lincoln, Tyler locked eyes with Marshall Vogel. The two immediately clicked and started dating pretty much right after that. They dated for 2 years before they married in 2017. Tyler and Marshall eloped in the living room of their house in Omaha. Both of their families were upset that they didn't have a wedding, so several months later, they had a big reception that all of their family came to. For a period of time, Tyler and Marshall lived in Omaha, but both of their families lived in the Lincoln area, so they eventually moved to Lincoln and settled on a 3-acre plot of land. The land allowed for them to have a small farm, owning miniature horses and goats. When the pandemic hit in 2020, the couple felt it was time to start taking steps to have a family. Tyler and Marshall both always knew they wanted kids. They started attending classes to be a part of the foster program in Nebraska. Eventually, they adopted 2 siblings, both boys. As the years wore on, cracks in the relationship started to show. Tyler and Marshall had their ups and downs, but they always seemed to love each other. Tyler planned to always be there for Marshall through thick and thin, but for Marshall, the weight of the stressors in their relationship began to become too heavy for him to bear. Marshall began to contemplate divorce. Marshall's father passed away, and this caused him to realize how short and fragile life was. He just wanted the both of them to be happy. The last time many family members saw Tyler was near the end of October at a Halloween party. Nothing seemed unusual, and Tyler, Marshall, and the boys were in good spirits. However, a few days before Tyler went missing, he reached out to his friend Amanda and confessed that Marshall wanted a divorce. Tyler was still hopeful the two could work it out, but there was no talking Marshall out of it. Marshall had sat down with Tyler on Wednesday, November 1st, and told him his intentions of ending the relationship. November 3rd, 2023 was a usual Friday for Tyler. He had big plans for the weekend. He was giving a presentation for work on Saturday morning, attending a wedding on Saturday night, and running a marathon on Sunday, which he had prepared for all year round. Tyler started the day working in Omaha, and after his lunch break, he went to the central office in Lincoln, where he remained until the end of his shift at 5:30 p.m. After work, Tyler stopped by a Costco on the way home to pick up 2 pizzas for the family's planned movie night. He was seen on security footage smiling while talking on the phone with someone. Marshall and Tyler's oldest son was working that evening, so the movie night consisted of just Tyler, Marshall, and their youngest son. After the movie ended, their son went upstairs. Around 7:30 p.m., Tyler and Marshall had a discussion about their relationship and discussed the logistics of a divorce. While there was no screaming or yelling, the discussion led to Marshall calling 911 at 7:40 p.m. Marshall recorded this conversation, a habit he had gotten into, explaining, quote, "Things were tense in our house, and we would get into arguments where the next day or the next week I would be told, 'I never said that. I didn't do that.' I kind of recorded it for my own sanity so I could listen back and say, 'No, you did, and I'm not crazy right now.'" In the recording, a scuffle could be heard. Marshall stated he called 911 because Tyler pushed him in the face and the chest. While Marshall was on the phone with dispatch, Tyler left the home through the garage. Marshall believed Tyler had left in his vehicle. At 7:41 p.m., Tyler's call to a friend went unanswered. This would be the last time his phone would ping. After this, the phone either died or was turned off, and he has never turned it back on. Deputies from Lancaster County Sheriff's Office arrived at the house at 8 p.m. They confirmed that no crime had been committed and walked to the perimeter of the residence looking for Tyler. Deputies then stayed at the property while Marshall gathered up some belongings for himself and the children before packing the dogs and their youngest son in the car to go to his mother's house. Marshall didn't stay at the house because he believed Tyler was going to return to the house at some point in the night. Marshall texted their oldest son telling him that under no circumstances should he go to the house. Instead, he needs to go to his grandma's immediately after work. His son had an assignment that was due at midnight, but he didn't have the things to complete the assignment. Marshall went back to the house to grab his son's school bag and was in and out of the house in under 10 minutes. Marshall had his mom on the phone the entire time because he was afraid Tyler was in the house and he wasn't sure what he was walking into. Marshall texted Tyler that night saying he was worried but was not going to reach out, telling Tyler that they were done at this point. He asked Tyler to let him know a good time to get the boys' stuff from the house. On Saturday morning, Marshall returned to the house to tend to the animals. After looking around the home, Marshall realized nothing was touched or out of place. That's when he discovered Tyler was still gone. Marshall called some friends looking for Tyler, thinking he might have gone to a friend's house or reached out to talk to someone, but no one had seen him. Their calls to Tyler went unanswered. At 9:35 a.m., Marshall made a second call to 911 to report his husband missing. Multiple agencies responded to the search for Tyler. Authorities did a complete search of the house and property, as well as searched a family property down the road. At 11 a.m., Marshall called Tyler's dad to tell him the news. Friends and family drove to the house to assist in the search for Tyler. Neighbors checked their cameras for footage from Friday, but no one picked up footage showing Tyler. This wasn't unusual as the neighborhood isn't a well-lit area and the houses are very spaced out. Tyler's family was hopeful that this was a big misunderstanding and that he was staying somewhere to blow off steam from the fight. But by Sunday, everyone was worried after Tyler failed to show for the half marathon that he had spent the whole year training for. No one knew where to look for Tyler, so they started by searching his normal running paths. People gathered to start walking the trails near the neighborhood and in the local parks. Others knocked on the doors of neighbors in the neighborhood, but no one saw Tyler. On Monday, November 6th, daily large group search efforts began. Tyler's co-workers helped lead searches with hundreds of people gathering to search. Local media picked up the story right away, which was instrumental in getting the word out about Tyler. Search and rescue dogs and cadaver dogs were brought to the residence, but nothing was found. Authorities served a search warrant and left with Marshall's phone and other electronics. A few days later, the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office released a grainy video of the last sighting of Tyler. The 7-second video from November 3rd at 7:41 p.m. is from a camera overlooking a driveway on the west side of Tyler's home. The video shows Tyler running away from the home. He was last seen wearing gray pants, a zip-up sweatshirt, running shoes, and his Garmin watch. It didn't make sense for Tyler to run from the home after a fight, especially to run toward the back of the house, away from the road, when he could have left in his vehicle. There had only been one prior argument when Marshall asked Tyler to leave the house. Tyler agreed, but in the middle of the night, Marshall got up and looked out the window to find Tyler sleeping in his car on the property. No one understood why Tyler took off after this argument. It was out of character for him. On Friday, November 24th, 2 scent tracking dogs were sent to the house. While they were able to capture Tyler's scent, the trail they mapped out was odd. The dogs went around the back of the house, then through a large piece of land to the east of the house. The pasture to the east of the house is private property, so Tyler and Marshall always stayed off this plot of land. The dogs then zigzagged through a heavily wooded area, making a big U shape, ending at the road. Both dogs stopped tracking at the road, indicating Tyler possibly got into a car at that point. The area mapped was uneven, heavily wooded, and had tall grass, making family and friends wonder why Tyler would take such an odd path. Due to the circumstances leading up to Tyler's disappearance, Marshall was heavily looked at because 1, he was the spouse, and 2, because the relationship was leading to divorce. Friends and family demanded answers from Marshall. Marshall had anger towards Tyler and blamed him for this. Marshall's mom had attacked Tyler's family with such hatred for Tyler to the point that law enforcement had to step in. Tensions were growing. Just a few days before Christmas, on December 22nd, Marshall posted a statement online in response to the increasing criticism towards him. The post reads, quote, "Tyler was sometimes physically and emotionally abusive towards me. After years of this, we were discussing divorce. His father, Lonnie Goodrich, was aware of Tyler's abuse towards me, had retained an attorney, and was reviewing the complaint for dissolution. There are recordings that documented Tyler was becoming increasingly verbally abusive towards me and the boys, and he told me he would ruin my life. He removed his wedding ring. On the evening of November 3rd, I told Tyler that I would be filing for divorce. Tyler's response prompted me to call 911. Tyler was aware I was on the phone with the 911 dispatcher. He was yelling at me to hang up. I told the dispatcher that I thought he was leaving in his car, but he instead ran out of the garage on foot. Tyler had a previous domestic violence arrest during a past relationship. He avoided the consequences from that arrest through a diversion program. This time, I think he was trying to avoid consequences by running away before the deputies arrived. His family was aware of his history of violence in relationships. When the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office responded to my 911 call, I answered their questions and gave them permission to search the house and the property. They found no sign of Tyler. The deputies stayed while I packed mine and the boys' things for the night, gathered the dogs, and left the house because I expected him to return that evening. The boys and I did not spend the night at home. I did not go looking for him that night, assuming he'd return home overnight. When he didn't, I called and looked around for him, but no one knew where he was. At that point, I called 911 and reported him missing, and then I called his dad. I consented to a search of the house and property. I showed them Tyler's computer, and I gave them the hard drive from our home security system. Tyler was the only one who had access to the security system, so I was not able to view or show them the security recordings. They later viewed the recording of Tyler running from the garage and shared that publicly. Over the following days and weeks, I consented to multiple searches of the house and property and another family home and property in the neighborhood. I've assisted them in providing all of the known passwords for the family devices so they could review our digital footprints. Since Tyler ran away, I've been focused on the boys and keeping them safe and cared for. Members of my family participated in searches. I've purchased signs at the request of his family. I answered all questions of a private investigator, and I've provided all of the information police have asked me for. His sister Felicia and I worked with a professional dog tracker at our property and neighborhood. The tracker concluded that Tyler ran from the garage, hid in the tree lines east of us, and ends at the street as if he got into a car. I have limited contact with Lonnie and his family after they falsely accused me of not properly caring for the boys. His mother, Shelley, who we have limited relationship with because of her alcoholism, made recorded threats against me, including "I'll fucking hunt you down." I believe the police, friends, and family were trying to create an environment where Tyler would return. I didn't make any public statements or correct the misinformation that was being put out. I supported that strategy and kept the details of why Tyler ran away from being public. That strategy has not worked. Tyler has not returned due to the increasing public statements about my children. I'm no longer willing to stay silent. Neither I nor my children had anything to do with Tyler's disappearance. He ran away to avoid the deputies. Although he won't be returning to our marriage, I hope he's safe and he does return to deal with the circumstances he caused. I appreciate the extraordinary efforts putting to finding Tyler. Thank you to my family, friends, and colleagues. Your support means everything to me. It's a difficult time for my family, but I hope you have a blessed Christmas. Marshall Vogel. Marshall's reference to Tyler's previous domestic violence arrest was in reference to his 2014 third-degree domestic assault charge, which was ultimately dismissed. His statement upset Tyler's friends and family. Many said Marshall made several low blows throughout the statement. Authorities asked Marshall to come to the sheriff's office with his sons to talk, but Marshall said he wanted to hire an attorney first. This prompted people to accuse Marshall of not cooperating with the investigation. A month later, Marshall hired a private attorney and sat down with investigators. He took a polygraph test in March of 2024 and passed. Authorities have confirmed that Marshall has been cooperative in the investigation. In late January of 2024, the investigation took an unusual turn when a letter was sent to police. In the letter, the anonymous individual claimed that they knew Tyler was deceased. They went on to say that he died after being hit by a drunk driver while running at night. This letter drew widespread speculation as to who it could be. Finally, the person responsible for writing the letter came forward, a local psychic. While the letter was specific, she did not have any proof of the vision, and it did not help police in finding Tyler. Investigators had few credible leads until Saturday, March 8, 2025, when a man walking his dog discovered human remains. At approximately 9:43 that morning, Lancaster County Sheriff's Office was dispatched on a report of a deceased individual located half a mile away from Tyler's residence. During the preliminary investigation, authorities observed the body had been at the location for an extended period of time. Based on the details at the scene, including the location and proximity to Tyler's last known location, police contacted Tyler's family. On March 10th, the Lancaster County Sheriff's Office held a press conference to publicly identify the body as belonging to Tyler. The wooded area where his remains were found had been previously searched by public volunteers. While he was not located during searches, officials believe his body had been there for over a year. Preliminary results of the investigation have led authorities to believe that this is not a homicide, though they call the discovery of Tyler's body suspicious. Tyler's friends and family still don't know what happened to Tyler and are overwhelmed with grief and sadness. Thank you for listening to Without a Trace with your host, Jolynn. I hope you enjoyed our deep dive into Tyler's disappearance. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please subscribe and follow us on social media. And join me next week as I dive into another case.